You are about to be locked inside the Stingray Show, and coming up on this edition, we are going to talk with a coach who played and not only played but coached at Air Force Academy. And we're doing that because the 4th of July is this week. We are doing a patriotic show. Troy Calhoun, the coach of the Air Force Falcons, will join us on this edition of the Stingray Show. Guys, we've got a ton to cover with him, so let's get the Stingray Show rocking and rolling.
Reminder, those of you on Tide 100.9, look out. You're about to feel the buzz of Stingray.
This is Stephen Ray, a.k.a. Stingray, coming to you live from Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
I'm Heath Hopkins. I'm here in DeSoto County, Mississippi, right outside of Memphis, Tennessee. You know, Mark, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you feel that responsibility to pay it forward and give some kid a chance coming up in the ranks, kind of like Tony did for you?
Why do you think I'm talking to Stingray tonight?
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
No, I mean, look, no.
Heath, Stingray, Here's the deal. When you get involved with Texas, it's like getting married to a stripper. and let me explain this. It looks good. It's kind of sexy on the surface. Yeah. But then you get the baggage, you get the drama, you get all that eventually comes with it. And that's what you get with Texas, and that's what the Big 12 learned.
And Heath, any thoughts on our show moving forward?
Hey, to everyone in Tuscaloosa listening here on Tide 100.9, with the Stingray Show, if you don't like it, you better learn to love it, because it's the best show going today, baby. Woo!
And ladies and gentlemen, with all of that, we want to welcome you inside the patriotic show right here on the Stingray Show. Heath, how are you doing? Because today's show is going to be awesome.
You know, Stephen, I say it every year. You know, when we come up on July 4th, I will tell you July 4th is my favorite holiday. But when we get close to Thanksgiving, I will tell you Thanksgiving's my favorite holiday. They're still both my favorite holiday. I get so excited this time of year. It's always about family and getting together and everything. But you need to reflect back, whether it's Thanksgiving or today. There's several reasons why we get to celebrate this week.
Correct. So today on the Stingray Show, we are about to interview the head coach of the Air Force Falcons. Of course, that is Troy Calhoun. And Coach Calhoun not only coached there, but he also played there from 1985 through 1988 as a quarterback, and then had coaching stints in the Denver Broncos and the Houston Texans in the NFL, and he's been at Air Force ever since 2007. Ladies and gentlemen, please help us welcome to the Stingray Show the main man of the Air Force Falcons, Mr. Troy Calhoun. Coach, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Stephen. What an honor to be a part of your great show and to have an opportunity today to be with you and Heath.
Thank you.
Coach, I've always thought that Air Force has the absolute greatest helmets in college football. I love those helmets. I'm not going to lie, I get a little upset when you guys start tinkering with them and do the alternate helmets. I love that white helmet and that blue lightning bolt. Do you guys ever get a lot of compliments on that? Because I still think it is the absolute greatest helmet overall, number one, no matter the division or the conference. It's the best helmet in college football.
You know, Heath, I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I think as a player, especially somebody who had the opportunity to play here, boy, you strap those bolts on the side of your ears, man, you better be ready to rock and roll.
Yes, sir.
Now, Coach, I know you're a former quarterback now. When I was a kid, I'm 48, I'll be 49 at the end of the year. But when I was a junior high kid and trying to play the quarterback position, obviously I was not good enough at it. But, run the option, I was in love with the late D. Dallas. Thought he was the greatest thing ever. And I was so fortunate, growing up a kid outside the Memphis, Tennessee area. He got to play in the Liberty Bowl. I got to watch him destroy Mississippi State in that game. And I ended up going to Mississippi State. I grew up a Mississippi State fan, but love D. Dallas. I know he's no longer with us, but Coach, you played for Air Force. You're coaching there. Just talk about it as a player or what that was like coming in.
Really, Heath, I tell you what's interesting. Probably over somewhere beyond 90% of our guys really don't have any kind of military background. likely chose Air Force because of the education and some of the opportunities that you'd have after you were a graduate of the United States Air Force Academy. But once you get here, you're around the people, how contagious the service part of it is, the bonds, the friendships you make. And then certainly within our football team, it sounds a little corny, but just in the bloodstream and the bones, the Bolt brotherhood part of it too. And it's amazing. It truly is. Is this an easy place? No way.
Right.
You look academically, we're still test mandatory, which means you better be at least a 25 ACT or over a 1200 SAT, having pre-calculus and chemistry and a good number of classes in terms of the curriculum you had in your high school years, and willing to serve, right?
Mhm.
You're going to raise your hand. You're taking oath to the Constitution of the United States of America and the belief in freedoms, in liberty, which you guys are spot on, to have this show this afternoon with 4th of July here in 3 days.
Yes, sir. So, Coach, during your time at Air Force playing quarterback, you led the Falcons to a 12-1 record one season in which you defeated Notre Dame and Texas in the same season. Walk us through both of those wins, Coach, as you remember them.
Yeah. I was a freshman that year, Stephen. I was not the guy that was out there.
Right.
If I got in, we were way, way ahead, which that year I played in some games because we had some opportunities where we had good leads. Certainly that was a long time ago, nearly what was almost 40 years, 39 years ago in 1985. And I do think Service Academy football in the 1900s was different. You look, there were, during that century, there were 5 different Heisman Trophy winners.
Right.
With some national championships. I don't think anybody has that perspective now, just the way college football's changed and just where our focus is in terms of producing leaders, men and women of character that go out and serve well for us. It's either in the Air Force or the Space Force, but those were great memories. Certainly the buddies, the friendships that you make, to play really good football, to have good wins over Notre Dame and Texas, and truly a remarkable year. Will we ever see something like that again? I don't know.
Right.
A little bit of a perhaps. I do know this. I do believe we can play very competitive football. Over the last 4 full seasons of football, when you look at 2019, you take COVID out of there, you go to 21, you go to 2022, 2023. We've been fortunate to win a good number of games. And as we go forward, we look forward, just look towards the competition that we'll encounter too.
Yes.
Coach, you mentioned being a former quarterback, already brought up the late D. Dallas. You Air Force quarterbacks ever get together and pick on each other who's the best?
Heath, you already said it. Who's the best? So I just told you I backed up a little bit my freshman year and got in there in some games. My sophomore year, I started there there at the beginning of the season, and they said, we got this freshman that's really, really talented. And I was like, no way. We got to get this guy in there and get him some reps. His name's D. Dallas. And I wanted to be so mad at Coach DeBerry and the rest of the coaches. Well, you know what? Especially now you're sitting in a seat and looking at from a coaching perspective, they had to get D. Dallas in there. And
right.
He was so magnificent. The humility that he had, how easily he was able to share, anytime there was any kind of achievement. And he had some outrageous things that he did that you wonder, will it ever be repeated? I don't know. His sophomore year, he rushed for over 1,300 yards. The opening game of his senior year against San Diego State, he rushed for, he scored 6 touchdowns. I think it was only on 13 carries, ended up being a Heisman Trophy finalist.
Yeah.
The other part is we played Notre Dame that year right here at Falcon Stadium, and they were the defending national champions. They had like a 21 game winning streak going into that game. They didn't lose until later at the end of the year. They played Miami down in the last regular season game of the year. And the corners are Smigala and Todd Light. And he threw for over 300 yards. And boy, he was really, really quick, had a great release, wiry, strong, and just rarely ever took a direct shot just because he had the kind of vision to see where a tackler or an edge rusher was coming from, and the ability to elude was, really in a lot of ways beyond description.
Yes, sir. So, Coach, hold that thought because we were up against our first break. And when we come back, we are going to transition into your time that you served our country in the Air Force. That is on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Stingray Show. We will be right back. Welcome back inside the Stingray Show, our patriotic show. And today our guest is Air Force head coach Troy Calhoun. And before the break, we were talking, Coach, about you playing there as a quarterback. Now let's move to after college from 1989 through 1995. You served our country in the Air Force as an active duty officer. Where all did you go and what did you do for the Air Force during the active duty?
Yeah, Stephen, I appreciate you asking that and sharing that. I was fortunate. I was here at the academy my initial year working as a graduate assistant football coach. And then I went into the communications part of the Air Force. And specifically, it was if the president ever had to send an EAM, an emergency action message, to launch the nukes. And that message, whether it was sent to the subs, they're out at sea, or the short range missiles they're at that time within Europe, or to send the ICBMs likely over the polar cap if that were to occur, a necessary, highly, highly interesting program. I can't tell you how many background clearances and top secret this you had to go through to make sure you were allowed access to that program, but incredibly fascinating. And so it took me, after I left the academy, I went down to your guys' area of the country. I went to Biloxi, Mississippi, down at Keesler Air Force Base. Spent a good bit of time there, just the training, the exposure, the background there. And then went to Oklahoma City at Tinker Air Force Base, and which required a great deal of travel, especially to the Pentagon and to a software and a hardware component of it out in the civilian sector. And then I ended up coming back to the academy for 2 years as a captain in the Air Force.
So, Coach, thank you, obviously, for your service. And I do have a quick follow-up to that. Looking back on that experience of being an active officer, how does that help you to relate with your players today?
Stephen, I'll say this, when you do go into a home, let's be real here. You look at it nationally, less than 1% serve.
Right.
And so when you go in and visit with a family, a young man that's 17, 18 years old, that may have an interest in the United States Air Force Academy, just being able to share, okay, here's a little bit of, here's some of the things that occur while you're at the academy. Academically, you're going to take 18 or 21 semester hours. And yes, the rigor is absolutely there when it comes to, 2 levels of calculus, taking an aeronautical engineering or an astronautical engineering, the summers, when it comes to, you're going to go through a basic training. Right now, our freshmen reported last Wednesday, they got a really good haircut and they're right in the midst of a basic training. I'd love to have them every day as a football coach. We don't, just because there's a bigger picture that's involved here. And then being able to prepare them if maybe you want to go fly large planes, fly a C-17, fly a C-130. Perhaps you want to be a fighter pilot. You want to jump into an F-15 or an F-35 or special forces, or you want to go to med school, or you want to do something on the business or engineering part of it to help our country. And so those experiences, that time in service, I do think you are able to convey to a young man, hey, here's some of the things that are going to be on the horizon when you're done at the academy.
Wow. Coach, with all that, I had a great friend, minister, There was a kid in his youth group that went off to West Point. He went to go visit him, and he played baseball up there, and he thought it was so amazing. They were doing drills, and all of a sudden, cannon shot off, and everyone stopped. It was funny. He said they were doing infield drills, and he said everyone just stopped. The ball rolled to the outfield. Everyone stopped. They saluted, and and they were lowering the flag for the day. And he said it was just an awesome moment to capture. He had no idea what was going on, and he was just taken back by it and touched by it. In the service academies with you guys, you have some ramifications, but you also have some benefits with the confines that you have to work in. What are some of the pluses? I know you were saying right now, the freshmen got a new haircut and they're getting after it right now, but what are some of the benefits that you get that other colleges don't get?
Well, Heath, I think there are, especially when you look, if you can look out, and it's not easy to do. I mean, my goodness, when you and I were 17, we were just, how well are they going to feed us? Where can I get a
Right.
bunch of French fries? And I don't know, I want to go see a girl or whatever it is. To be real, when you're 17 years old and I want to play ball, I want to play sports. I look at it this way. When you are 22 years old, the power of the education, and I think so often you think education, that's academics. Well, that's a significant part of it. But the growth, when it comes to the character attributes, the leadership qualities, the friendships, just how close you become because of the unity, because of the mutual respect, the sense of purpose, and the values. Be a good worker, treat people right. You're a part of something bigger than yourself. We want to play good football, but we want to go salute and we want to go serve our country. And we're the same way here. Every afternoon at 4:45, you hear the national anthem. Football stops. You stand at attention and put your hand over your heart. Those that are in uniform are going to salute, and we're going to play the Star Spangled Banner. Again, we want to serve the meaning of what it means to be an American.
Yes, sir.
And what that is, again, it's the liberties. We believe in freedoms.
Yep.
And we don't necessarily have to have a letter attached to our name to be a part of this party or that party, or you treat people right. Again, we want to give to our country, and that's why our men and women feel here at the United States Air Force Academy.
Wow,
that's awesome.
So, Coach, now I have a fun follow-up to that. Has there ever been a time that you're getting ready to chew a player out, or a coach is getting ready to chew a player, or is chewing a player out, and like the national anthem's got us again, and then you have to stop, so then you turn around and peel them out again? Has that ever happened in your tenure as a player or a coach?
Oh, absolutely, Heath. I can't say necessarily you were going to holler at somebody, but a time where you said, you know what, that execution wasn't needed. It wasn't what would need to be. Hey, get up, do it again. Let's get it right. And all of a sudden there it starts and you don't get to do it immediately. So there you are, you're standing at attention in the whole bit. And I think, all right, we got to get this thing cranked up for the meaning of how we got to operate this play and run it better, And so, hey, put your, buckle your chin strap up. Let's go. Let's go get after it. We got to repeat that snap.
So Coach Calhoun, in 2003, you had the opportunity to coach in the NFL for the Denver Broncos. How did you get that opportunity?
Stephen, I was so fortunate. The head coach at that time with the Denver Broncos was Mike Shanahan, and he had an opportunity to see us play a couple of times when I was at Wake Forest University as the offense coordinator and quarterback coach there. And just he said, hey, we have a spot on defense where I want to have somebody look a little bit at what we do, whether it's with protections or route schemes, to help us on that side of the ball, especially when it comes to opponent preparation, and just an unbelievable football education. And I'm going to go off on a tangent here a little bit, but I mean,
Coach.
He absolutely should be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Mike Shanahan should. You look. 2 Super Bowl wins as a head coach, had the most prolific offense for a long, long time in the NFL when he was the offense coordinator, won a Super Bowl with the San Francisco 49ers. You look at how many of us, and I'm so proud to be a part of this tree, that have gone on to be really, especially in the NFL. You look at his son Kyle, you look at Sean McVay, you look at, with the Green Bay Packers, Mike McDaniel with the Miami Dolphins, Gary Kubiak, just how many of us took so much from Mike and have been able to apply it in our own ways at various places. A slam dunk, no-brainer to be in the NFL Hall of Fame.
Coach, before we head to break, who is the greatest coach? I mentioned to you in the break, I think Lou Holtz is my favorite coach. I don't think he's the greatest coach. But if you had to guess who your favorite coach, or if you could share with us who your favorite coach is or the greatest coach, who are those two guys?
Heath, I don't know realistically if you can do that. I mean, obviously, I mentioned two guys right there, and Gary Kubiak and Mike Shanahan.
Yeah,
I was fortunate enough to play for Fisher DeBerry here at the Air Force Academy. I mean, I'll tell you what's awesome about this sport: the appreciation for the history of it. Yet, like no different than you do in the world or U.S. history, let's learn as much as we can about the past so we don't make some of the same mistakes. But there's so many best practices that we can apply as we move forward. We certainly try to do that here at the Academy. We want to learn, and the thirst and the appetite for us to continue to evolve and adapt and change, we're going to do that in the way we operate within our football program.
Yes, sir. So, Coach, hold that thought because we were up against yet another break. And when we come back, we are going to transition into you getting the head coaching job of the Air Force Falcons. That's on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Stingray Show. We will be right back. Go.
Welcome back, Tuscaloosa and SEC football fans. You're listening to the Stingray Show. Today we have a special episode. It's the Patriotic Show, and we have none other than Troy Calhoun, the head coach of Air Force. And Coach Calhoun, we talked about in the break earlier. I mentioned about Lou Holtz. He's my favorite coach of all time. And you shared a funny story in the break, but any interaction, one-on-one action, any funny stories, or the story you shared, what is your favorite Lou Holtz story?
Oh, I know this. There were a couple of times that we played in South Bend, specifically in 1994. We had a pretty good football team that was on a 7-game winning streak. We had a really talented quarterback and a sophomore, Bo Morgan, that had played a couple of games the previous week. We'd beaten number 8, Utah, in a great win here at Falcon Stadium. And we're getting ready to go to Notre Dame. And so you're trying to find out a little bit, hey, what's the field going to be like? And we said, God, it's going to be really warm. It's going to be really sunny. And so we go out there on Friday afternoon. We go to the stadium, and we walk through there at the stadium. And we head over to our hotel. We actually stayed right on the border, on the Michigan-Indiana border. And it was probably 68, 69 degrees, nothing but sunshine on the Friday. We did notice the grass was a little longer. They didn't play at home the previous week.
They lost a lot more.
I don't think the blade. Maybe the blade wasn't working.
Imagine that. You got a fast quarterback that runs the option. We forgot the lawnmower, guys. We forgot to cut the grass with these guys.
That's right. You got to put your foot in the ground, make a plant, and get forward a little bit. So we think, well, they're just waiting until game day. No different in baseball. You wait until the day of the game to mow the infield or cut the greens on the morning of the U.S. Open. Well, we go back there on Saturday. And it is pure blue sky. It's going to be 72 degrees. This is mid-November. You thought this is going to be a fast track. This is going to be fun playing football. We walk out there and we're like, where'd all this mud come from? And I think the sprinklers were on for a while that night. And so we really wanted to go over to the city of South Bend and ask them, hey, this place over here at Notre Dame, here at the stadium, I think they're overwatering the field. You got to double charge them here. So I'll say this. I was fortunate enough when I was at Wake Forest University, we hopped in the car one day to go watch practice at South Carolina. And I'm telling you, you want to talk about a fabulous coaching job that he did there too.
Yeah.
I think he went 1-10 his first year, but by year 3, they were 9-3. They were Outback Bowl champs. And yet you can go back. He did it at William and Mary, North Carolina State. You remember the fabulous win he had at Arkansas when he won in the Orange Bowl. I think it was like 38-6, even though he had to sit down a couple of players before the game against Oklahoma. Did a fabulous job. I think it was Ricky Foggy at Minnesota, and then just a sensational run at Notre Dame too.
Mm-hmm. I'll touch on this and see if we'll get back to our questions. When Lou Holtz was at South Carolina, he had like a third or fourth string running back. He was a walk-on originally named Ron Brewer. They had so many injuries, and they had to finish with him. In that season, they won the Outback Bowl, went to the Outback Bowl, and he used to just dog Ron Brewer in the post-game comments all the time. And I remember one time he said, "Let me tell you how slow Ron Brewer really is. If he got in a foot race with a pregnant woman, he'd finish third every time." I was like, "Coach, you can't say that." But I loved Coach Holtz for those quotes, and he loved Ron Brewer. If he didn't love him, he wouldn't have said that in the press conference.
Yeah, I'll tell you, a small world. We really thought, I was at Ohio University at the time, and he was from Northwest Ohio, and we really thought we're going to get Ryan Brewer to come down here and be a Bobcat. And and late, I think it was right when he first got there at South Carolina, he ended up going down and playing there and had it. You're right, especially those two bowl games. I think they were both Outback Bowls in consecutive seasons.
I think you're right.
Really, really productive days.
So, Coach, let's go on ahead and transition back to Air Force. And in 2007, you became the head coach of Air Force. How did that happen?
I'll tell you this, Stephen, they called. I was with the Texans in Houston at the time, and asked if I'd be interested. The academy did, and I said, nope. We loved Houston. Amanda was from Houston, so our kids got to run around with their cousins. And I really thought we had a fabulous staff with the Houston Texans. Gary Kubiak was a head coach on offense. I was the offense coordinator. Kyle Shanahan was a wide receivers coach. Our quality control coach was Mike McDaniels. On the defensive side, our quality control coach was Robert Saleh. After that first, we drafted when we first got there. We had a guy that was the defensive rookie of the year, a guy named D'Amico Ryans. We just thought the upside was enormous. And after a couple of days, I woke up. I remember it was a Wednesday morning, and I woke up at about 5:15 in the morning, and Amanda did too, right out of the blue. And she said, "You're thinking about doing this, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Why?" And I said, "Just the caliber of young people and what they commit to do for our country." And so there it went. We ended up coming back. Now, I have to confess. So I stayed with the Texans. That weekend we played the Indianapolis Colts, who won the Super Bowl that year with Peyton Manning. We beat them on that Sunday. And then the next week, our final regular season game, we beat the Cleveland Browns, which was on December 31st. And the very next afternoon on the 1st, I flew up to Colorado Springs.
Right.
And here we were in Houston, where it was like 72 degrees. In Maryland and Colorado Springs, it was one of those days where it was a little chilly.
Right.
And they're coming over 2 days later. The players, all the cadets came back to the academy. And I said, I want to meet with these guys right away. So I was like, get them all in the team room. Now, I'd been in the NFL with, the size of bodies that you have there. And I walked into my first team meeting with these guys. And I remember just within about 10 seconds, just getting a big old pit in my stomach thinking, what in the world were we thinking coming here? And yet you kind of shared with them a little bit the vision, the kind of unity, the teamwork, the toughness, the grit, the fight. You got to be willing to accept any kind of role. And I thought, wait a second now. Let's not talk down to these guys. Let's realize what we have here when it comes to heart and fight and character. And I thought maybe we'll be in a few games and maybe we'll get to coach here for 2 or 3 years. And even if we never go to a bowl game, at least we get a chance to enjoy a few years of experience with these young men and young women here at the United States Air Force Academy.
Now, Coach, a quick follow-up to that. In that first season there at Air Force, that team became the first team in program history to beat Notre Dame, Utah, and Colorado State all in the same season. What was it like winning each three of those games in your very first season?
Well, they were all on the road. That
Yep.
was the unique part of it. And we got a couple of breaks, right? That doesn't happen without a couple of, I don't want to say lucky, but a few things that happen. And you play well, which we did. We're over there at Salt Lake City. They have a 4th and goal from the 1 yard line. We have an 8-point lead. And Drew Fowler, we smacked the running back going over the top, and we down him right at the 1 yard line. And you're thinking game over. Everybody on the sidelines going nuts and trying to say, hey, guys, we still got to take a knee and we got to surge that ball forward a little bit because you're backed up on the 1. I remember we still had to expire. We had 3 plays we had to expire. And these guys are all going crazy and think, hey, you know what? Maybe we can do this. And we fumbled the snap. Now, fortunately, we recovered it.
Right.
And so I called timeout and said, hey, guys, we haven't won yet. And they're like, you're right, coach. And so I'll tell you, after that point, you had them in terms of their focus, how attentive, how captive they were. And it really carried forth throughout the rest of that season. And great win. You're right, in South Bend, beating Notre Dame. I played really well that day. I think it was 41-24 was the final. And just a remarkable group of young men. And I'll tell you what's amazing. That group had plenty of spark. And I've had a good number of teams that have had plenty of verve and juice since I've been here. But that group, how badly they wanted to win and how much they cared about each other. And now we had some guys that they were unique. I don't want to say mavericks, but they had a strong independent spirit, which we love in the Air Force. There wouldn't be an Air Force. We didn't have that a little bit. They weren't irreverent, but they, golly, what an awesome group of young men. And when I see them now, I mean, I don't know whether to get a big old grin on my face or you definitely have plenty of feeling for those guys.
So, Coach, hold that thought because we're up against yet another break. And when we come back, we are going to go to the 2015 season when you guys played in the Mountain West Championship game. That's on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Stingray Show. We will be right back with Troy Calhoun. Go.
God bless America. Welcome back to the Stingray Show. I'm Heath Hopkins along with Stephen Stingray Ray, and you're listening to Tide 100.9. And right now, our very special guest is the head coach of the Falcons of Air Force, Coach Troy Calhoun. And, Coach, I've got to ask, because, you know, here in the SEC, it's all about rivalries, and you get more than one. And with that, do you enjoy beating Army or Navy more, Coach? I'm putting you on the spot. Which one do you like beating more?
Whoever you play next.
That's right.
I'll tell you, you know, Heath, what's really neat about our program is we absolutely have those 2 games. You play Navy in early October most years, and you play Army usually the first Saturday in November. And then you have your Mountain West games too. I mean, we play Colorado State. You're playing for a trophy in that game also. I do think being able to go after, play really, really good football competitively within your conference, within your leagues, great for our guys. And then absolutely having the service academy games too. And then hopefully you win enough games where you have an opportunity to play for a bowl championship too.
When you're in the Mountain West, what team has usually come to mind that your guys get fired up to play? I know it's always the next game. I'm talking to a head coach. I'm going to get coach speak, but what conference game do they really get fired up for?
Heath, I'll say this. I mean, obviously there's only one other conference school that's in our state. That's Colorado State. But our guys, they're grateful to get to play college football.
There you go.
We have no NIL. We do not have athletic scholarships. You know, you think of how much you experience, what you have to do before you even get to earn a chance to be a part of our team that has nothing to do with football. I mentioned basic training, what our freshmen are doing right now, the way our guys, what they're doing in the summers. We have a good number of guys currently. There are bases all over the country. We have a good number of guys that are at locations all over the globe in cultural immersion programs. I tell you, there's not a moment where our guys say, "Oh yeah, this is automatic. I get to play college football." They have passion, they have feeling, and they have gratitude.
Wow. Wow.
So, Coach, you just mentioned right there the Mountain West Conference, and in 2015, Air Force played in the Mountain West Championship game. Talk about that game and especially leading that team to the championship game.
Stephen, we've been fortunate. We've been in the hunt a good number of years. You just think about how rare it is. I mean, our school against the other 11, whenever we play one of the other 11. I mean, again, I just mentioned it earlier. I mean, every guy here, you have to have over a 3.5 GPA. You have to have over a 1200 SAT. You're going to serve. You have to get a really good haircut when you first get here. Just there's so much that goes into being a football player here at the Air Force Academy. And you're playing against teams that, they can bring in transfers, whether they're from another 4-year school or graduate transfers or from a 2-year school. The amount that they're able to share when it comes to image and likeness dollars, having those conversations, and here you don't. And so, there's a difference. Let's be real. Let's be candid here. Yet our guys have still been able, and I think it's primarily because of two main reasons, just the commitment of our players, their dedication, their work ethic, their sense of unity, and the quality of coaches that we have on our staff to help develop our guys and make sure they are well prepared.
Coach, I'm just going to throw something random out there. You talked about NIL. Let's just say Boeing sat there and the reincarnation of D. Dallas is playing for you, and he's a Heisman Trophy finalist. Like, hey, we want to give this guy an NIL deal. Can they do that at the service academies? Could something happen there?
We cannot, Heath. I'd love to see that be the case. And I mean, one of the freedoms we fight for are hopefully, I don't want to say unlimited opportunities, but it's possibilities. It's opportunities.
Right.
We love free markets. We fight for economically for capitalism, right?
We do. Yeah, you do.
And so whatever the value is, we'd love to. I mean, you sure think of all the principles of our country, how that absolutely would line up if at any place it would be somewhere where they fight for those liberties. And yet that's a decision made somewhere else. That's made back in Washington, D.C. So
we all know they get their act together, right?
I'm not going to say.
I know you can't say it. I can.
We have a bunch of people in the House and the Senate that the heart is in the right place. But I'm going to ask you guys to help us on that part, to contact your U.S. senator or local rep. Tell them we got to get that altered a little bit going forward.
I will do that for you, Coach. I will. Coach, Kendall Thomas, former boss of mine, he was in the Air Force, and he proposed this question. He wanted me to ask you. How do you handle recruiting with the added pressure of finding kids interested in service and needing the recommendations they have to go through to get into the academy?
Heath, I've done this now for a few years at the academy, and you can see I don't have a hair on the front. My daughter teases me, and she said, at least pass on a 4-head instead of a 9-head. And I said, well, that's just trying to handle this recruiting part of it. Here at the Air Force. You're right. It's hands down the hardest thing that we do.
Wow.
Just because that's not a pool, it's a tiny little puddle or an eye drop in terms of, who you can recruit. And you mentioned it, trying to gain admission to the academy. I mentioned earlier, academically, the requirements. Just when it comes to the standards and the code of conduct that's a part of being here. And it is very, very difficult to find a candidate for the United States Air Force Academy. And I might tease our tennis coach or our basketball coach, say, hey, you just got to find 5. Right? I can find 11 on offense, 11 on defense, some specialists. And, oh, baby. Yeah, that is really, really difficult.
What's the hardest to find? I'm going to guess linemen or kickers. I'm just guessing. What's hardest to find for you, Coach, with all those?
Oh, I'll tell you, it really depends on the year. And I say
Okay.
that there's some years we say, all right, hey, here's a good running back. Or other years, hey, here's a good nose guard or interior defensive lineman. Or boy, it varies from year to year. I mean, it's like I say all the time, it's why we have to be able to adapt and we have to be able to change defensively what we do offensively too. I think a lot of times people say, hey, do you guys run pretty much the same? No. We have to get whoever's the most qualified to get into the Air Force Academy if they're a solid football player, and we got to morph in that direction to play to their strengths.
Yes.
Wow.
So, Coach, with all of the craziness back in 2020 with the COVID pandemic, you were able, though, to win your 100th game at Air Force. What does that mean to you? And do you remember the game that put you at 100?
Stephen, I know this. The guys that win games are players that are disciplined and well coached. And it's because of your team. And everybody says, well, that's trite, or that's the pat answer you're supposed to give. No, it's the truthful response. Yes. And that was a good win that evening. We won 28-0 here at home, at Falcon Stadium. And yet we go forward. Yes. And I say that from the standpoint that, we're trying to get our next team ready to go, but we are, again, incredibly grateful for each game that we win, because it's hard to win. I think, especially at the United States Air Force Academy, playing in the Mountain West Conference, the schedule that we play, when we do, man, there's a lot that goes into it.
Yes. So, Coach, moving to last season, you were ranked in the very first college football playoff ranking of the season at 25 for the first time in program history. How big of an accomplishment is that for your program moving forward?
Stephen, it's not something that I ever bring forth to our team, nor did I last season. I think the sheer complexity and the difficulty and the challenges that are involved of coaching at the Air Force Academy, you really are trying to work day by day and inch by inch. And I think the other part of it here, the focus that's necessary academically, the maturity that's required in the way you carry yourself and your squadron or your military obligations. I just think we have to be really, really well grounded. We say this in the Air Force all the time. You better be grounded as a human being where the planes can get up in the air. And so the planes aren't grounded. And I think there's a lot to that adage.
Yes.
Coach, in college football, we're seeing all these spread offenses and these spread options, and they're getting to the line as quickly as they can. They keep running things over, and it's about tempo. And then we see a lot of the service academies, and as you mentioned earlier, sometimes you're changing defense with what you got to work with, but we've seen a lot of the service academies go with the triple option, things like that, and you guys are successful. And I know that it's attacking a space and doing that, just like some of those other offenses. But could the Ohio States and the Alabamas of the world running your offense, do you think that they could be even more successful? Because you guys take advantage of the numbers and advantage of the space. I know they do it as well, but if they ran your system, do you think they would have more success? Because you guys have all the success in the world, highly competitive, and you get so much less to work with, and you're handcuffed.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, really, Heath, and you bring up 2 points there. One, and it's like I tell my coaches every single day, I shared with them this morning too, we have to know more football than anywhere else in the country. We got to be willing defensively to do a little more. Offensively, we got to have a couple of wrinkles, in the way we line up, a few more formations. We have to use more motion than anybody in football. And we have to do something that's a little different. If everybody else was underneath center, by and large, we'd be back in the shotgun. If everybody else was going a little slower, we would be high tempo. And really, Ben Martin did that here at the United States Air Force Academy. Now I'm talking a half century ago, but he threw the ball all over the yard.
Right.
Just because of that time, everybody was in either I pro or I slot.
Right.
And the ball was going forward with the tailback. And, the second part of your question, you do have evidence where there was a great deal of success. This show's based out of where, did you say?
Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, there was a guy, I think, that he had a hat. I think the makeup was a hat that had, they weren't checkered.
He's still had a lot of Coca-Cola bottles around here, Coach.
Yeah, he, when he had that secret meeting with Darrell Royal, the Texas staff, and all of a sudden he took his team from Tuscaloosa out there to the LA Memorial Coliseum. The rest is history, including the day when they played in the Sugar Bowl. He couldn't wear his hat because he said, Mama said he can't wear that hat indoors. And
that's right.
To win back-to-back national championships like they did. I think we know what they did. And, Barry Switzer and those years at Oklahoma in 1985, when they won the national championship. And, boy, there was a team that won the national championship. I believe it was in 1994, 1995. And then in 1997, in Lincoln, that utilized an awful lot of those principles. You bring up a great point, that way. And, there are some advantages. I do think defensively throughout the spring and throughout the month of August, to have to physically play blocks, the discipline and the precision, just being assignment sound and yet still being aggressive, and how you play defensively. There's a lot of benefits in that. I think offensively, the number of one-on-one throws, we want to lead the nation in yards per pass attempt and yards per pass completion. It's the number one thing we share with our guys after ball security. And that means you better be pretty effective running the ball too.
So, Coach, I've got 3 questions left for you, and then we'll let you get out of here. The first one is, going into the 2024 season, can you please give us a preview of your team and how you think you guys are going to do this season?
Stephen, to be completely candid and forthright, I have no idea.
Okay.
I mean, just you look at it every year, ESPN, and they do a magnificent job of this, of ranking returning production.
Mm-hmm.
And that includes guys that return that played for you the previous years, and they take into account, receiving yards, touchdowns scored, rushing yards, tackles, sacks, tackles for minus yardage plays. And when there are 134 schools that play FBS or Division I football.
Right.
And when you want to turn it upside down so you're at the very top of that means you're 134. So, so now the next plan is you're thinking, okay, we better bring a good number of guys in through the transfer portal.
Yeah.
Well, that's a goose egg. We didn't bring any that way. So, and yet I'll say this, I do look forward to working with this team. I think they're very eager. I think they feel like that, we have to earn our opportunity to play football at the Air Force Academy. And there's an esprit, there's a camaraderie there that does give you a good sense as a coach. And it's going to require some patience, a good bit of instruction, teaching, certainly being fantastic at situational football and going through that repeatedly. I'm fired up about the season. I can't tell you what all how are things going to unfold. Some years you have a pretty strong sense. This isn't the year as we sit here in early July for that to be the case.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So, Coach, looking back over your entire career of coaching and playing, which game that you played in or coached in means the most to you and why?
Well, I think any most recent victory that you have tends to be right in the front of your noggin, So to win our bowl game, to win another bowl championship here recently against a ranked team, against James Madison, that's certainly right there. You mentioned earlier, we discussed it, hit upon it, service academy victories. Those are the two, bowl championships, service academy victories,
Right.
and just being able to win enough games to play in the postseason. That's a gigantic achievement by our guys whenever we do play in a bowl game.
Coach, what advantages do you think that you have that let me rephrase that. What do you guys do differently that you don't think other college football programs do that make you guys competitive and compete and be successful?
Heath, I try to visit as many programs. I probably go visit more programs than maybe any other coach in the country. We finished spring ball early, so intentionally you can go watch 3 or 4 other programs and how they work. And it is so impressive across the nation, the technical parts of football, strategically and tactically, the way the game evolves and advances, how well people practice, how productive they are with their meeting time, with their walkthroughs. I can say this: we do try to take advantage of every minute we have, to be extremely organized, reduced in the amount of meeting time, the amount of practice time we have on the field. We never see our guys before 1:30 in the afternoon, and then we have to get them out of here in the early evening just because of the study hall requirements for everybody at the Air Force Academy. So I'd like to think that each minute that we invest has a chance to have a return on that investment.
Yes. So, Coach, my final question, and we have thoroughly enjoyed you joining us. My final question is, with Independence Day coming up on Thursday, and with you having served in Air Force and are now the coach there, what does Independence Day mean to you?
Yeah, Stephen, liberty. He said, okay, what one quality in life should we be the most grateful for, especially in this country? And do we really want to preserve? It's liberty.
Yes.
And the uniqueness of each human being, where nobody's above anybody else, to care for another person, to be a part of something. But we're all different. We're all individuals, and we got to preserve that in this nation. And I was fortunate enough, my wife and I took a fabulous trip here last month. We went to 5 different countries in Europe, and our whole intent was, let's see how much we can learn even more about World War II, about the Cold War. And I'm just telling you, when I came back to our country, I realized how fortunate we are to live in the United States of America. It's not perfect. There's some areas definitely where we got to grow and we got to be better. But I'll tell you what, the freedoms we have, don't ever take them for granted. We get to talk about college football. How many other places you go around the world and they don't have those kind of goalposts up, or they don't have a backstop, where they play baseball, or they don't have sports or athletic opportunities, or the chance academically to learn, to go to schools. And we have so much going for us. Boy, I'm not saying there aren't a few things maybe we got to get on a little better path, but boy, we have a fabulous nation and we have unbelievable citizens in this country, but it starts with liberty.
Coach, thank you for saying that. That was awesome. Heath, go ahead, man.
That's hard to follow up, Stephen. I got to do my dog and pony show questions. I don't want to do those now. Coach, you mentioned earlier that you might have mentioned during the break, you were stationed in Biloxi, and I'm here in Mississippi. I'm on the complete opposite end of the state. I'm on the north end. I'm just a couple of miles from the Tennessee state border, Tennessee and Arkansas borders. But during your time in Biloxi, do you remember any restaurants? Were there any fun things that you remember doing down there? There's not much in Biloxi, but there is some good food down there.
Oh, absolutely. Heath, I got to tell you, I got really good at that crawfish. Now it's a lot of work to get that little chunk of meat. It definitely got me hooked on, and we tried in July, right as basic training, really gets in a pretty good flow. Amanda and I always try to go to the beach somewhere and see how many shrimp we can eat, and oysters too, just to take advantage of it. But it was a great, great summer. And, again, just the training, what we learned while we were there, but to experience the culture there too.
Right.
It's one of the great things about being a part of the Air Force, how many different areas you see of this country and globally too.
Wow. Coach, our show's always about storytelling. We always bring on current and former coaches and players, and we always get to ask them these fun stories. But the one thing I always ask reporters and coaches is, do you happen to have a Steve Spurrier or Mike Leach story? Did you guys ever cross paths, share a dinner, or did some kind of camp for a week or anything, or were you great buddies? Anything, but do you have any stories about either Steve Spurrier and or Mike Leach?
Yeah, two absolute legends that they not only made our game better by the way their teams played on the field, but just the spirit and the history and the way they made the sport better too. And ironically, we played Washington State in 2019 in our bowl game. And so to be able to visit with Coach Leach before that game, and definitely one of one. Yet a guy that, just his profound sense of history of the sport. I was in awe how much he understood about the Air Force.
Right.
The way he would talk about he was talking about the F-16s flying at Hill Air Force Base, just north of Salt Lake City. He said, up there in Spokane, they do a good bit of the survival training at Fairchild Air Force Base. And I was taken aback a little bit. And I was like, he said, over here at Luke, that game was at Chase Field, the home of the Diamondbacks is where we played that night. He said, boy, those F-16s fly all over the place there too. I just tell a kid that if he really wants to fly, he should go to the Air Force Academy. And I thought, wow, the depth of how much he knew beyond football, and he knew a lot about football. Coach Spurrier, ironically, we were just in Phoenix a couple of months ago. The Fiesta Bowl hosts a great, great summit. He played in the golf tournament there, and I told him thank you for he shared with people that you can be tremendous at your craft as a coach, dedicated and focused, and put a really competitive team together, yet also still be a strong fatherly influence to your own kids, and to share with your staff that you can be a heck of a member of your family and still be a darn good football coach. Because I don't think we ever want to lose that sense of balance that you have to have. Does it require a good bit of organization and discipline? Sure. But we have other priorities too. We want to do our job. We want to coach extremely well. And we want to have our teams be really competitive, but still to be a darn good father also.
Yes. So, Coach, as always, thank you for taking time out of your schedule to join us. We have thoroughly enjoyed it, and the floor is all yours. Any final words that you would like to say?
No, Heath and Stephen, I'll tell you, the reach of your program, the array of interests that you bring forth, and what you do for college football. Keep sharing those great stories, those great messages, and then just heartfelt, the personal thank you to be able to share the importance of our men and women who serve.
Right.
There are a good number of them that are overseas, that are deployed, meaning they are not with their families, but they're doing it for the sake of freedom. So thank you for this show in particular.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Coach, thank you so much. And Stephen, you can cut this from the show. Coach, it's an honor to speak with you. And this is not anything about my son, but we're giving my son goals. He's 13. He's fixing to be an 8th grader. We go to a very large high school here. It's very competitive in football, and he's fortunate enough. He's a big boy, and he's playing on both sides of the ball. But he told us last year he thinks he wants to be a pilot, and I even mentioned to him, he's like, well, maybe the Air Force. You could look into that, and I said it's hard to get into the academy, and we weren't even talking about football, and we were trying to guide him with that, and he asked questions for about a week and a half about it. And the kid sets goals and everything. And then one day I was taking him to baseball practice. He said, Dad, it's a college, right? It's like, yeah, it's a college. And he said, do they have football there? And that's what I turned and I smiled at him. I was like, when we get home, I'm going to tell you about D. Dallas. He was my favorite when I growing up as a kid. And so he has interest. And so it's just, it's an honor to tell you, thank you for serving at a school that serves so many of us and young kids. I know Mississippi's a poor state, and I love it when I see kids. It doesn't matter if they're going to Annapolis, if they're going to West Point, they're going there to, the Air Force Academy. Coach, thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for dealing with those handcuffs. Thank you for all of that, because it is an inspiration when a local kid here goes off to one of those academies and plays. Everyone from counties around talk about it, and they know that kid. And it's an honor to see those kids go and have that opportunity. And Coach, I am so glad that you serve at a place that give those kids an opportunity. And I just wanted to say thank you for that.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Heath. And I'll tell you, you know what? If he really has that passion or maybe that interest, expose him as much as you can to a flight line or definitely get him out here, at some point. Because, well, I'll tell you what, I'm looking up in the sky right now and they're flying all over the place, whether it's soaring the gliders or the powered flight planes. It is pretty inspiring. And I'll tell you, even career-wise, just there is a pilot shortage.
Really?
Whether you come right back home and fly for FedEx or, we need pilots the next 20 years.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So he'd be joining a great field in terms of the skills. Heck yeah. Great life, great quality of life too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Heck, man, that FedEx hub is about 14, 15 miles from my house.
Yeah.
A lot of my neighbors work for FedEx.
So,
Coach, I just realized what happened here, why this phone's ringing. I apologize that it was. I told my wife we have to meet with a group at 1:00. I just remembered it. So I'm sorry. She's on me saying, hey, let's get organized.
Okay. Coach, we will let you go, but thank you, man, and happy 4th.
Hey, thank you. You guys want to do this again anytime, you shout, okay? Doesn't have to be
thank you,
4th of
Coach.
July.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. Hey, we all got the same wife. We're all married to the same woman.
Thank you.
Okay, see you guys. Be good.
All
Thank
right.
you, Coach.
Thank you.
Well, Heath, that is going to wrap up the patriotic show there with Troy Calhoun. And man, I got to tell you, the Air Force Falcons just got a new fan in the Stingray.
I've always loved Air Force and the Falcons. And like I said, I've mentioned it several times here in the show. D. Dallas, thought he was a super awesome quarterback when I was a kid in middle school watching him play. And I got to see him perform and play at the Liberty Bowl against Jackie Sherrill in his first ever Mississippi State team. That's how long ago that was. I want to say that was 1990 or 1991. I think it was 1991. But but Coach was, I expected a fun show. I expected it, but I didn't expect to get goosebumps and be inspired. And we got that multiple times from Coach, and it was a pleasure and it was awesome at the same time.
And Heath, with us being a college football show and an SEC show where we don't have an agenda of talking about one specific team, the beauty of that is we can give you guys a different perspective like we did tonight.
Yeah. And I love how our show is, we can stray off the track. We can jump the tracks and talk a little bit of this and that. And sometimes we talk about silly stuff and what day it is. And, it's applesauce day or whatever else, or it's pet your cat day or, bring your kid to work day, whatever it is, and we have our Fave 5 and we get to cut up with that. But, it's shows like this that I really thoroughly am blessed. And I know that I'm blessed and enjoy to get to not only do it, but get to bring it to you. And
Mhm.
when I hear other people come up to me and say, man, I really enjoyed that show with Coach Calhoun, it'll make me smile because they got just as much of it out of it as me and you did, Stephen.
Correct. So, Heath, on that note, we hope that you have thoroughly enjoyed the patriotic episode of the Stingray Show with none other than Troy Calhoun of the Air Force Falcons. When we come back tomorrow, we are going to touch more on college football. God bless America and God bless all of you guys with Stingray Show is done, and we will see you guys tomorrow night right back here on the Stingray Show at 6 p.m. Have a happy 4th of July, everybody. God bless.
Hey, George Washington said it best. It's only treason if you lose, baby.